The horizon shimmered in a pale, uncertain light as the vast, unforgiving Alaskan expanse came into view. Far out on a creaking, blue-tinged ice floe, its very existence threatened by the warming whisper of spring, the mother bear, a powerful yet deeply cautious creature, led her 2 cubs on a desperate voyage toward solid ground. The ice, once a steadfast sanctuary in a world of frozen order, had begun to yield to the unrelenting sun, cracking and splintering beneath the strain of an impending thaw. Every trembling moment on that drifting stage was a battle against nature's slow betrayal. As the creaks and groans of the disintegrating floe echoed like an omen of change. In the delicate balance of the Arctic morning, the mother bear's eyes, dark and resolute, betrayed both fierce determination and tender worry as she watched her little ones paddle awkwardly through the shallow, frigid water by instinct and necessity. The cubs, with their clumsy, uncertain movements and soft, fuzzy coats still untouched by the harshness of survival, clung closely to their mother, trusting in her instinct to guide them through a realm where every ripple and gust of wind told a story of both beauty and treachery. As the ice finally broke apart, sending shimmering droplets cascading into the endless sea, the family found themselves cast upon a vast and rugged bank, a narrow strip of land that marked the threshold between the open, hazardous waters and the dense, shadowy forest beyond. The coastal forest rose before them like a cathedral built by nature herself, its towering, snow-dusted pines and hemlocks standing sentinel over secrets older than the ice. Dappled sunlight filtered through the thinning branches, illuminating the forest floor in a scattering of gold and green. Yet as enchanting as the scene appeared in the early light, a palpable tension hung in the air, a silence that was less the absence of sound than the presence of unspoken warning. It was here, in this delicate interplay of light and shadow, that an ancient evil had taken refuge. Deep among the gnarled trunks and frost-laden underbrush, the Wendigo lurked, a spectral reminder of folklore and a predator that cared not for natural order. Known in hushed legends for its insatiable hunger and malevolent cunning, the Wendigo was drawn to the feeble, the small, the defenseless, and on this day, its unholy senses had been piqued by the scent of frightened cubs and the lingering essence of untamed wilderness. As the family of bears began to press deeper into the forest in search of safer ground and more abundant sustenance, a necessary migration triggered by the melting ice and the desperate search for food, the mother bear's every instinct pulsed with urgency. Her ears, attuned to the subtlest disturbances in nature, caught a distant sound that was not the natural murmur of wind through trees but something altogether more sinister. A low, almost imperceptible moan rolled through the undergrowth, punctuated by the occasional, inhuman howl that made even the stoic landscape shudder. The sound was like an echo of despair from a realm beyond mortal understanding. A sorrowful dirge that seemed to seep from the very soil of the forest. In that moment, as the forest's ambient noises intermingled with the plaintive sound of an ancient curse, the mother bear's heart pounded with a primal certainty. Danger was near. Every muscle in her lithe, powerful frame tensed in preparation, her gaze flitting to the darting shadows between the trees. It was not merely the cold that gnawed at her instincts, but a darker, something that felt like a presence from the old world, a presence that hungered for the frailty of life. The cubs, still oblivious to the significance of every rustle and distant cry, huddled close behind her in a protective trance. Their eyes, wide and innocent, sought the only solace they had, the unwavering strength and fierce love of their mother. The forest soon shifted from a realm of reluctant refuge to one of uncertain peril as twilight began to deepen. The shifting light transformed the once gentle hues into a tapestry of deep indigo and shadow. A time when the veil between the natural and the supernatural thinned dangerously. In the encroaching dark, every leaf, every whisper of the wind, carried the weight of hidden menace. It was during this fragile hour, when the boundaries of night and day blurred together, that the Wendigo made its cautious approach. Slithering silently between the trees with a grace that belied its monstrous nature. The creature was drawn to the scent of youth and vulnerability. The Wendigo moved with an almost predatory elegance, its gaunt, twisted form barely visible in the shifting gloom. Its presence was heralded by a sickly, unnatural chill that defied even the bone-deep cold of the Alaskan wilds. As it closed the distance toward the bear family, The forest seemed to hold its breath in a moment of macabre anticipation. The creature's eyes, if eyes they could be called, glimmered faintly with an otherworldly luminescence, a haunting red that pulsed with the promise of suffering, and its elongated limbs moved with a preternatural agility. It was not a mindless beast, but a cunning predator whose sole purpose was to exploit the weaknesses of the living. Unaware of the ghastly presence that stalked them, the cubs began to explore the fringes of the clearing, venturing ever so timidly toward clusters of tufted ferns and icy shrubs. Their playful whimpers echoed softly as they bounded over patches of frost, their delicate instincts struggling to reconcile the joyful wonder of exploration with an undercurrent of ineffable fear. The mother bear, ever vigilant, followed with measured strides, each step deliberate and filled with a protective urgency. Her eyes, dark and brooding, swept over the terrain and the approaching dusk with a mixture of maternal affection and the steely resolve of an experienced guardian. She knew that in the coming night, the true test of nature's cruel balance would be laid bare, a confrontation between raw, sacred maternal love and the insidious, corrupt hunger of an otherworldly curse. As the sky deepened into a canopy of midnight blue, broken only by the scattered glimmer of distant stars, the forest transformed into a realm of deep, visceral secrets. The mother bear's senses were heightened to every sound, the rustle of leaves stirred by the caress of a midnight breeze, the snap of brittle twigs, and the unearthly, discordant murmur of wind carrying voices that might have been the laments of ancient spirits. Her ears twitched at each sound, and though fatigue weighed upon her, every fiber of her being remained alert and determined. The cubs, sensing the shift in their world, inched closer to her, their tiny bodies quivering with both excitement and a dawning apprehension. Then, in an instant that seemed to stretch into an eternity, the forest erupted into chaos. A sudden, piercing cry, a sound that rent the fabric of silence like a jagged shard of ice, cut through the night. It was the sound of the Wendigo striking, an unholy shriek that reverberated through the trees and set the very heart of the forest pounding with dread. In that tumultuous moment, one of the cubs, separated momentarily by curiosity from its mother's protective circle, found itself in the direct path of the impending horror. Without warning, from the depths of the inky darkness, the Wendigo emerged in a blur of grotesque speed and savage intent. Its elongated limbs and razor-sharp claws poised to deliver a deathly blow. The mother bear's world contracted to a singular, fierce focus as she lunged forward with a power born of pure instinct and unyielding love. In a flash, she intercepted the creature's attack, a collision of nature's raw might against supernatural malice. Her roar, a reverberation of ancient defiance and maternal fury, split the night as she threw her massive form between the Wendigo and her terrified cub. In that heart-stopping instant, the world seemed to slow, the clashing forms, the ringing echoes of primal anger, the desperate, terrified eyes of her cubs, all merged into a tableau of raw, unfiltered survival. The Wendigo's attack was not without its own brutal elegance. It circled with a predator's cunning, seeking any opening in the mother bear's seemingly impenetrable defense. Its claws slashed through the cool air, each strike a promise of ruthless pain. The clearing became a battleground where ancient forces collided, the boundless, unyielding power of nature embodied in a mother's protective rage clashed violently with the eldritch, ephemeral cruelty of a cursed spirit. The forest bore witness to every guttural snarl, every pained cry, and every thunderous impact as paw met claw in a struggle where the stakes were nothing less than life or death. In the midst of the fray, the cubs cowered low, darting behind clusters of ferns and fallen logs, their small, frightened eyes wide with a mixture of terror and sorrow. Every fiber of their being yearned for the safety embodied by their mother's imposing presence, while every instinct screamed in warning of the dark force that now stalked their fragile existence. The mother bear, undeterred even as her own flesh bore the scars of battle, fought with the singular, unyielding force of a love that transcended both time and nature itself. Her powerful limbs struck out with fury, her roar echoing off the ancient trees like a battle cry from a lost era. In those moments, the forest's silence was shattered by the sound of straining muscles, the desperate breathing of a creature locked in combat with an enemy as relentless as the night. As the struggle waged on beneath a sky heavy with looming clouds and the spectral light of a timid moon. Every element of the world seemed to pulse with the raw intensity of the confrontation. The cold air, laden with the scent of pine and the metallic tang of blood, vibrated with the energy of ancient legends and the unspoken promise of sacrifice. The Wendigo, though seemingly gaining ground with its agile strikes and unnatural persistence, could not overcome the indomitable force of maternal instinct that surged through the bear. Blow after blow, the mother bear repelled the creature's advances, each strike a declaration that nothing, not even an ancient curse, would be allowed to claim her offspring. In those arduous, twilight moments, a tension so profound seemed to suspend the flow of time. The forest, previously a silent witness to the passage of seasons, now trembled under the weight of an epic struggle between the pure force of a mother's love and the dark allure of something far beyond mortal ken. The outcome remained uncertain, teetering on the fragile edge between hope and despair. And yet, as the battle raged with an intensity that lit the darkness with flashes of raw power, one truth shone forth with irrefutable clarity, even in the face of supernatural malevolence. The sacred bond of kinship could never be severed without a cost. As the confrontation reached a fevered pitch, the Wendigo, driven by an insidious hunger to claim the vulnerable, pressed its assault with renewed desperation. With a ferocity that defied its gaunt, spectral form, it surged toward one of the cubs, a tiny, innocent creature whose only transgression had been to exist in a world suddenly darkened by evil. At that heart-wrenching moment, the mother bear's roar grew louder, more primal, a sound of anguish and defiance that reverberated across the frozen landscape and challenged the very forces of darkness to back down. Her massive form collided with the Wendigo in a final, desperate act of protection, her claws rending at the creature with a strength forged from boundless maternal love. The impact sent shockwaves through the clearing, scattering leaves and shattering the fragile silence that had preceded the onslaught. Time seemed to fracture around the spectacle. In the vivid interplay of terror and courage, the surrounding forest bore witness to a battle for the ages, a struggle in which every heartbeat was a testament to the unyielding power of nature's true spirit. The Wendigo's dark, agile form twisted and lashed out in one last, vicious attempt to claim the cub, its eyes gleaming with an infernal light. But the mother bear, her determination unyielding despite the agony of each blow, refused to allow any harm to befall her young. With a titanic effort that melded beast and guardian into one, she drove the Wendigo back. For that suspended instant, the world held its breath as fate pivoted on the knife's edge between destruction and deliverance. In the ensuing moments, as the monstrous figure of the Wendigo recoiled from the overwhelming force of the mother's defiance, the forest exhaled in a collective sigh. The creature's retreat was not a full retreat but a temporary withdrawal, a pause in the relentless cycle of predation and revenge. Its spectral form melted into the shadows between the trees, leaving behind only the echoes of its chilling threat. The mother bear, her breathing heavy and eyes now filled with both sorrow and unyielding resolve, gathered her cubs close, though the immediate danger had been repelled. The haunting specter of the Wendigo lingered in every rustling leaf and every whispered wind, a reminder that the malevolent force, even if vanquished for the night, was never truly destroyed. Under the waning glow of the moon and the watchful eyes of the ancient pines, the family of bears began their arduous journey further into the depths of the coastal forest. The path ahead was fraught with uncertainty, a winding passage through a realm where light struggled against encroaching shadows and every step echoed with the promise of both hope and heartbreak. Each footprint pressed into the soft, moss-laden earth was a silent prayer for safety, for sustenance, and for a reprieve from the omnipresent terror that stalked the edges of their fragile new world. In the stillness that followed the clash, a stillness that vibrated with the memory of relentless battle and the quiet dignity of a mother's sacrifice, the forest slowly reclaimed its rhythm. Yet beneath the gentle rustling of branches and the soft murmur of a distant stream, an unspoken vow took root in the heart of the resilient bear family. Their journey had been tempered by the touch of darkness and the warmth of courageous love. It was a journey that would forever bear the scars of a night when the essence of life itself had been put to the ultimate test. And so, as the first hints of dawn began to pale the sky and the promise of a new day emerged on the horizon, The mother bear led her cubs forward, a steadfast beacon of hope amid a world where nature's grandeur and its hidden terrors danced in eternal, tragic ballet. The echoes of the night's battle would remain with them, a lingering memory that, even when the Wendigo's shadow returned to the depths of the forest, the sacred bond between parent and offspring could defy the darkness. As the pale hints of dawn gave way to the full light of day, the coastal forest emerged from the lingering gloom with a stark, almost ethereal clarity. The mother bear led her cubs along a narrow, winding path marked by patches of soft moss and lichen that clung to the weathered bark of towering pines. Every step was measured, every rustle and whisper of the wind carrying secrets of both solace and peril. The forest, at once majestic and forbidding, held the promise of refuge for those brave enough to seek it. Yet its depths concealed dangers that ancient legends dared not be forgotten. The early morning air was crisp and laced with the scent of pine resin and damp earth, a subtle reminder of the season's transient beauty. Rays of sunlight filtered through the canopy overhead, casting mottled patterns of gold and green upon the forest floor. For a moment, the quiet majesty of the woods seemed to outweigh the darkness that lurked beyond, the unfathomable hunger of an old curse waiting to reawaken. But for the mother bear, every tranquil ray of light was both a blessing and a cause for caution. She knew that in these liminal hours, when nature itself seemed caught between renewal and retreat, the malevolent presence of the Wendigo could stir once more. The cubs, still naive in their wonder and clumsy in their steps, scampered along beside her with tentative exuberance. Their playful antics, soft whimpers of curiosity, and occasional pounces at falling leaves offered fleeting moments of innocent joy amid a landscape burdened by ancient menace. Yet even these youthful displays of life were tinged with an undercurrent of latent apprehension. The cubs often glanced back, eyes wide and uncomprehending, as though aware that the forest harbored more than the simple marvels of daylight. Their mother's low, rumbling growl at the slightest rustle, an almost preternatural sound of warning, spoke volumes about the stakes of their fragile existence. Deeper into the forest they ventured, where shadows lengthened and the terrain became uneven and treacherous. Gnarled roots and sudden depressions in the earth forced the family to navigate cautiously. The forest here was ancient, every twisted trunk and crumbling boulder a silent testament to centuries of change. The mother bear's muscles tensed with every step as she pressed forward, senses straining to detect any sign of the Wendigo's approach. For she had learned, through instinct and hard-won experience, that the dark spirit was a master of stealth, often cloaked in the very mists and shadows of the forest that offered natural camouflage. The oppressive silence of the deeper woods was broken only by the muted, rhythmic sound of the cub's cautious footsteps and the distant call of a lone bird mourning its morning solitude. In the midst of this stillness, a subtle shift in the atmosphere hinted at danger, a faint but unmistakable disturbance. As if the forest itself were holding its breath, the mother bear's ears twitched, her eyes, dark and knowing, scanned every movement, every flicker of light between the trees. Somewhere among the tangled undergrowth, an unseen presence moved, its intentions as inscrutable as they were deadly. It was in that charged moment that the Wendigo began to make itself known. Not in a violent display but in the near silent, predatory creep of its form, emerging from between a thick stand of birch and fir. The creature's gaunt silhouette glided like a wraith over the forest floor, its elongated limbs and spectral presence barely perceptible to all but the keenest senses. Its eyes, glowing with an eerie, muted red light, flickered momentarily as it took in the scene, a hunt not for flesh born of ordinary hunger but for the frail, unguarded vulnerability of youth. The Wendigo's ancient curse imbued it with an insatiable craving for that which was weak, in this case. The small, trembling forms of the cubs promised a feast beyond all natural measure. Without warning, the creature slipped silently from its hiding place, its approach as fluid and chilling as the winter wind. The mother bear, sensing the impending threat with a surge of protective fury, pivoted instantly, her roar, a deep, resonant challenge that echoed through the glen, ripped through the tranquility of the morning. A primal declaration that no force, however ancient or cursed, would dare violate her sacred duty. The sound was not merely an expression of anger, but a lifeline extended to her cubs, urging them to seek cover and heed the call of survival. In an instant, the forest erupted into a frozen tableau of survival instincts and raw determination. The Wendigo, caught off guard by the sudden defiance, lunged forward with a speed that belied its gaunt form, its claws outstretched in a bid to seize one of the cubs. In that split second, as if time itself had fractured into endless, painful moments, the mother bear intercepted the attack. Her massive form surged between the creature and her young ones, a force of nature incarnate wielding fury and tenderness in equal measure. The collision was a cacophony of snarls and the shattering of brittle underbrush. A clash where the sacred bond of motherhood met the unholy hunger of an ancient curse. The struggle that ensued was both brutal and beautifully tragic, a dance of survival where every muscle straining against the other was imbued with a desperate passion. The Wendigo's talons, slick with the promise of a dark harvest, slashed through the air, while the mother bear's powerful forelegs raked out in a determined defense. Each impact, each wrenching growl, reverberated across the forest as if echoing the timeless conflict between light and darkness. The cubs, hidden beneath a thicket of ferns and fallen leaves, whimpered softly, their innocence illuminated by flashes of stark terror and wonder at the colossal display of protectiveness before them. For what seemed an eternity in that charged moment, the forest bore witness to a battle of unparalleled ferocity. The mother bear's strength and resolve shone through every feral snarl and every measured swipe, her eyes burning with the fierce light of maternal love. But the Wendigo was as relentless as the natural forces that had shaped the cold, unforgiving expanse around them. It circled, searching for weaknesses, its slender form weaving through the shadows with an almost supernatural agility. At times, it brushed dangerously close to her, every near miss a harbinger of the dark promise it carried, a promise to eventually break through even the strongest of defenses. Amid the tumbling chaos of the confrontation, the forest seemed to pulse with an eerie rhythm, each gust of wind, every scattered leaf, and every distant call of the wild converged into a symphony of life and death. The mother bear roared again, a sound that cut through the tumult with the precision of an ancient decree. Her defiant bellows combined with the anguished howls of the Wendigo, creating a jarring contrast between the raw ferocity of nature and the spectral whispers of a long-forgotten curse. For a fleeting moment, it appeared as though the forest itself was drawn into their conflict, the very trees bending ever so slightly as if to shield the vulnerable or perhaps to bear silent testimony to the timeless struggle. As the fray wore on, the Wendigo, realizing that its ambush was meeting a resolute and unyielding barrier, began to retreat into the murky depths of the trees. Its departure was not marked by a single, definitive exit but rather by a series of elusive, shadow-like movements, vanishing into the undergrowth only to reappear at its periphery. Ever watchful for another opportunity to strike, the mother bear, although victorious in that fierce moment, did not allow herself the luxury of complacency. Instead, every fiber of her being pulsed with heightened vigilance as she maintained a protective circle around her trembling cubs. Her eyes, still smoldering with the adrenaline of the battle, scanned the dark recesses of the forest, seeking any trace of that malevolent presence that threatened her progeny. The aftermath of the struggle left an indelible mark on the forest, a sudden stillness that belied the previous chaos. As if the very air was gathering itself together before the next inevitable storm. The cubs, now emerging timidly from their hiding place, nuzzled close to their mother, their small bodies seeking warmth and solace in her imposing embrace. In that quiet moment, the bonds of kinship shone brighter than the ephemeral threat, a silent vow that nothing would ever come between them. Yet, as the family began their tentative journey deeper into the woods, the lingering chill of the Wendigo's dark aura continued to reverberate through the trees. Though the immediate confrontation had passed, the threat of its return haunted every rustle, every flicker of movement at the edge of the mother bear's vision. Each step was measured carefully, every pause a cautious check for signs of a hidden predator. The forest, with its mesmerizing interplay of light and shadow, served both as a sanctuary and a labyrinth of lurking nightmares. As midday approached and the forest light deepened to a clear, unwavering brilliance, the mother bear led her cubs along a narrow stream that carved its way through the underbrush like a silver vein. Here, the tranquil sound of flowing water provided a brief, deceptive counterpoint to the relentless tension that had gripped their every moment. They paused by the stream's edge, where the water glistened under the sun, reflecting the hopeful blue of the sky above, a fragile promise of renewal amid enduring peril. For a fleeting moment, the forest seemed to exhale in relief. The cacophony of battle receded into a deep, sorrowful silence, and the lingering threat of the Wendigo felt momentarily at bay. But even as the family drank from the cool, clear water, the mother bear's senses remained acutely aware of the danger that might still be stalking them. Every ripple on the stream, every rustle in the nearby brush, was scrutinized with an intensity born of countless instinctive battles. The cubs, absorbed in their simple, animal curiosity, played near the water's edge, yet even their innocent antics were punctuated by the occasional, instinctive glance back at their ever-watchful guardian. In the hours that followed, as the sun began its slow descent toward the horizon, the forest transformed once again. Shadows lengthened and merged into pools of deepened twilight, and a pervasive chill signaled the impending approach of night, a time when the boundaries between the living and the supernatural blurred once more. The mother bear, drawing upon reserves of ancient endurance, gathered her cubs and resumed their journey. With each step, the forest seemed to whisper both reassurance and warning, a delicate balance of nature's benevolence and its hidden terrors. Unbeknownst to them, the lingering presence of the Wendigo was far from vanquished, concealed amid the gnarled roots and the skeletal remains of frostbitten foliage. The cursed spirit lingered like a shadow in the periphery, a silent observer waiting for the right moment to strike again. Its memory was etched into every gust of wind, its insidious hunger resonating in every creak of ancient timber. And as dusk settled in, cloaking the forest in a soft, mournful haze, that silent promise of impending darkness loomed larger than ever. As night descended with a measured inevitability, the mother bear paused at the edge of a clearing where the land sloped gently toward a distant ridge, a place that promised the possibility of a more secure resting spot. Away from the most concealed reaches of the forest, there, under a sky smudged with the first hints of starlight, she circled her cubs in a protective formation. The forest around them was alive with nocturnal whispers, a symphony of distant animal calls and the rustle of leaves stirred by a cool, insistent wind. In that fragile moment of temporary peace, the mother bear's gaze drifted upward, as if seeking silent counsel from the vast, indifferent heavens above. Within that fleeting reprieve, a deep, instinctual understanding took root in her heart, a recognition that the journey ahead was fraught not only with the threat of physical danger but with the perennial struggle between primordial instinct and the sublime power of maternal devotion. Every beat of her heart and every cautious step reinforced a promise that she would protect her offspring, no matter how relentless the night's terrors might be. The forest, with its eternal cycle of light and darkness, bore witness to that vow, a truth as timeless as the shifting ice and as raw as the bite of winter's chill. With the murmuring of the wind as her constant companion and the quiet, resolute presence of her cubs by her side, the mother bear began to move once more, her form a graceful, determined silhouette against the luminous backdrop of the starlit forest, though the specter of the Wendigo had retreated into obscurity for now. Its lingering threat was woven into the very fabric of the night. And so, under the watchful eyes of the ancient trees and the silent, impassive stars, the family continued onward, each heartbeat echoing a timeless promise of protection. Each step etched with the unyielding resolve of nature's purest love. In the heavy, trembling hours of dusk, as the last vestiges of daylight slipped beneath the ragged canopy of ancient pines and the forest exhaled a cool, sorrowful mist, the mother bear led her cubs toward a rugged ridge that overlooked a vast, untamed valley. The journey had been long and fraught with peril, a tapestry of fleeting moments of tender nurturing interwoven with violent clashes against that insidious force. The Wendigo, now, with the scars of recent battles etched into the gnarled bark of the trees and in the lines of her weary, resolute eyes, she sensed that fate was drawing near. Fate would demand a final, cataclysmic reckoning, beneath a sky mottled with bruised purples and indigo blues. The forest itself seemed to pause in silent anticipation of what was to come. The low murmur of the wind through the needles and branches, the soft patter of falling leaves mingled with the distant rumble of shifting ice, a natural symphony that carried with it the memories of countless generations before. For the mother bear, every natural sound was now underscored by the unsettling echo of the Wendigo's presence, a specter of unholy hunger that had stalked her family through the shadows of the forest. Though the creature had receded into the gloom earlier, its malignant energy lingered like a stubborn stain upon the soul of the land. The atmosphere was charged, almost tangible, with the promise of a confrontation that would test the limits of nature's mercy and the fierce power of maternal devotion. As the bears moved cautiously along a narrow trail winding between snow-dusted boulders and winding rivulets that shone like silver ribbons in the fading light, the mother bear's heightened senses detected a subtle, almost imperceptible shift, a change in the quality of the air. A soft disturbance in the rhythm of the forest. The cubs, playing quietly near a cluster of evergreen saplings, looked to their mother with eyes wide and trusting. They had already borne witness to the terror of a world tainted by supernatural cruelty. Their innocent existence rested solely on the strength of her protective embrace. With one low, resonant growl that reverberated through the glen, the mother bear signaled that they must halt, gather their strength, and prepare for what might be their last stand. A distant, eerie cry, neither animal nor wind, rose from the depths of the forest. A sound that was as mournful as it was ominous. It carried with it the heavy promise of doom, a spectral wail that sent shivers through the marrow of every creature within earshot. The mother bear's eyes narrowed, her ears straining to capture the meaning behind this new lament. There, hidden in a thicket of shadow and broken moonlight, the Wendigo had resurfaced, its gaunt form, half consumed by darkness and malevolence, emerged with a preternatural swiftness that belied its skeletal frame. Crimson glints ignited in its eyes, a macabre, otherworldly glow that spoke of ancient curses and an eternal, insatiable hunger for the weak and the vulnerable. In that heart-stopping instant, the time-worn tranquility of the forest shattered. The Wendigo's twisted figure surged forward, and the final battle erupted in a clash that echoed the epic struggles of myth and nature. The ground trembled beneath the ferocity of the assault as the creature lunged with sinuous grace toward the cubs. Its ragged claws extended in a deadly embrace. The mother bear reacted instantly, a fierce, protective force incarnate, her muscles coiled with a singular, unyielding purpose. With a guttural roar that blended sorrow and defiance into one resonant note, she met the dark predator head-on, her massive form colliding with the spectral assailant in a torrent of raw power and primal instinct. The ensuing struggle was both brutal and achingly beautiful, a desperate ballet of life and death fought beneath the indifferent gaze of the star-strewn sky. Each impact rang out like a tolling bell in the silent night, the angry rasp of claws against thick fur. The deep, sorrowful howls of the mother bear as she parried each vicious lunge of the Wendigo. The forest floor became a stage for their clash, a mosaic of disturbed earth and scattered needles, illuminated by fleeting flashes of moonlight as the combatants circled one another in a deadly dance. The Wendigo, with its unnerving agility and unearthly hunger, sought every opening to sink its fangs into the soft flesh of a cub. But time and again, the mother bear intercepted the advance with swift, decisive strikes, her paws delivering forceful blows that forced the cursed spirit back into the shifting shadows. In the midst of this relentless melee, the cubs huddled behind a fallen log, their eyes wide with terror and their hearts pounding in unison with the battle raging around them. The protective instinct of their mother shone forth like a beacon in the darkness, a luminous promise that no evil, no matter how ancient or relentless, would be permitted to harm them. Every fiber of the mother bear's being pulsed with maternal fury, each movement a fluid testament to the primal bond between parent and child. Even as her body bore the marks of the violent struggle, scratches that bled into tender fur and deep bruises that throbbed with silent agony, she fought on with a determination that defied the ravages of time and nature alike. The Wendigo, sensing that its prey was drawing ever nearer to its ultimate defeat, fought with a savage desperation. Its limbs, though gaunt and shrouded in tattered fur, moved with the precision of a long-dead predator, a creature that had hunted relentlessly for centuries. With a final, desperate surge, it skittered around the periphery of the clearing, aiming to encircle the defenseless cubs and snuff out the tender spark of life that they embodied. But the mother bear, Her senses honed by countless instinctual battles, anticipated this cunning maneuver. In one breathtaking, decisive motion, she lunged forward with terrifying speed, using her powerful body as a barrier. Her roar grew into a crescendo, a tumultuous mix of pain, defiance, and undying love, and with a tremendous force, she intercepted the Wendigo's advance. For an agonizing moment, time seemed to suspend, as if the universe itself recognized the profound gravity of that instant, before releasing the charge of raw emotion that swept over the combatants. The Wendigo's ghastly form staggered under the impact, its spectral energy flickering like a dying flame in the biting wind. Yet even as it recoiled, the dark creature did not vanish completely. It clung to the edges of the battle like a persistent shadow, its presence a grim reminder that malice may be repelled but is never truly vanquished. As the final confrontation reached its fevered apex, the forest bore silent witness to the interplay of loss and hope. The mother bear, battered yet unbowed, roared once more, a sound so pure and resolute that it seemed to resonate with the very heartbeat of the earth. In that final moment, the forces of nature and the supernatural collided with the raw, unadulterated force of a love that transcended both life and death. The Wendigo, wounded and driven back by the uncompromising will of the noble beast, melted gradually into the inky veil of the forest, its unholy red eyes dimming to a muted glimmer before fading completely into the dark recesses of the night. The forest exhaled a long, shuddering sigh, as if released from a long-held breath of despair. In the stillness that followed, the mother bear, her fur matted with grime and blood yet her spirit unbroken, gathered her trembling cubs close, their small bodies, slick with sweat and the remnants of fear, nestled against her warm flank, a living, fragile promise of continuity amidst a world forever scarred by ancient curses. The night, which had borne witness to unspeakable horror and heroic defiance, began its slow, measured retreat as the first light of dawn tinged the horizon with a hopeful, rosy hue. In those tender moments of post-battle quietude, the surrounding forest transformed as if by an unseen hand. The cacophony of struggle was replaced by an almost hallowed silence, a silence that spoke of both mourning and the fragile promise of renewal. The mother bear lifted her gaze, her eyes reflecting not only the pain of battle but also the quiet certainty that she had safeguarded the future of her line. The memory of the Wendigo's grim assault, though not entirely erased from the wilderness, now lingered as a mere specter, a cautionary echo rather than an immediate threat. The forest, touched by the first rays of a gentle sunrise, began its timeless cycle of rebirth. The trees, heavy with the dew of a waking world, stood as solemn sentinels over the battered clearing. Birds timidly emerged from their nests, their tentative chirps a soft counterpoint to the lingering silence. And as the mother bear led her cubs onward along the winding path toward a safer haven, a place where the melting ice might yet yield to the promise of renewal, each step they took was imbued with the unyielding spirit of survival and the enduring power of maternal love. In the days that followed that fateful night, the echoes of the epic confrontation resonated far beyond the confines of the forest. Among the human inhabitants of nearby coastal settlements, whispers of a brave, protective bear and the dark presence of the Wendigo mingled with ancient legends passed down through generations. Elders recalled the tale with solemn reverence, while hunters spoke quietly of a night when the untamed heart of the wilderness had displayed both raw cruelty and transcendent beauty. The story of the mother bear, who had risked everything to shield her young from the ravenous claws of a cursed spirit, emerged as a poignant emblem of nature's dual capacity for both ruthless savagery and boundless compassion. For the cubs, the memory of that night became an integral part of their very being, a secret legacy of courage and love that would one day guide them when they, too, navigated the perilous wilds of the north. As they grew beneath the towering pines and along windswept ridges, the lessons of that midnight battle became interwoven with the fabric of their existence. They learned that the price of survival was steep, that every victory came with a scar, and that sometimes the cost of preserving life was measured in heartbreak and quiet sacrifice. Yet, in the warmth of their mother's unwavering presence, they found the strength to carry those scars as badges of honor rather than marks of defeat. In the final hours before the sun claimed the sky in a radiant blaze of morning light, The mother bear paused once more at the edge of a rocky outcrop that overlooked a vast expanse of drifting ice and rugged coastline. There, she lifted her heavy head and let out one last, sonorous roar, a farewell to the darkness, a defiant call to the forces of life. The sound, carried on the crisp, invigorating air, seemed to ripple outward, touching every living creature in its gentle, sweeping embrace. It was a roar that spoke of hope renewed, of battles fought and remembered, and of the unbreakable, transcendent bond between a mother and her young, a bond that not even the most ancient curse could ever erode. As the morning unfolded, painting the world in colors of gentle golds and tender blues, the forest slowly stirred with the rhythm of a renewed day. The memory of the Wendigo would forever linger as a cautionary tale, a dark whisper amidst the chorus of nature's eternal cycle, but for that moment, the promise of a new dawn shone brightly. The mother bear, with her cubs close at her side, continued on her journey toward safer ground, a path paved with both sorrow and the unyielding light of hope. And so, in the final quiet moments of that epic night, as the last shadows of terror receded into the recesses of memory, the enduring power of maternal love illuminated the frozen wilderness. The grim specter of the Wendigo was forced into retreat, its malignant hunger held at bay by the fierce determination of a mother whose love defied the relentless forces of an ancient curse. Though the darkness may return in time, the legacy of that night remained etched upon the very soul of the land, a timeless reminder that even in the harshest of realms, the light of love and protection burns eternal.